Alright, one of you guys humbly asked me to do Viltrumite, so I'm gonna do it. And yes, viewers, I'm reading most comments. But before I get started, I had to change the question a little bit, because even though the typical Viltrumite can lift at least 400 tons, and with age, their strength and speed only increases with time, this clear fact does not seem to hinder them from smashing species that are a lot weaker than they are. And for the most part, they don't seem to be that bad in bed. Drag made that very clear. He had bodies lined up, and he wasn't the only one. Drag must have watched the movie The Bug's Life and got a little bit too excited. Anyway, the real question I had to ask myself was, how does being in a relationship with a Viltrumite benefit a human? And what are the pros and cons to this? Oh, and before I forget, there's one more thing we gotta talk about before I begin. This chick, Anissa. I hate this character. Now I say I hate her, but not really. I hate the idea of what happened to Mark with her. If you didn't know this, Anissa in the story of Invincible does R-word Mark. And I'm unsure about things like this in stories. I don't really care. They're not real. But there's one thing about this that bothered me, and that was the comments of people on TikTok and social media. Yeah, people saying, I wish that was me. I wish I could trade places with Mark. Or the worst one, Mark is so lucky. How, bruh? Look at this image. He did not want this. Now let me show you exactly what happened in the story.
Anissa, however, was not prepared to accept his rejection, leading to a disturbing and traumatic encounter. First, she attempted to seduce Mark, but when he resisted her advances, she resorted to using her formidable strength to overpower him, resulting in a violent crash on an unfamiliar farm. This horrifying incident left Mark not only physically wounded, but also deeply scarred and traumatized. The emotional toll of this encounter cast a long shadow over his relationship with Adam Eve as he struggled to confide in her about the traumatic event. Anissa's actions had left Mark not just physically injured, but also emotionally scarred, forever altering his perspective on trust and vulnerability.
Wah wah. You stay out of this. He also didn't hate it that much. They had a kid together. And also,
should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
Ha! Wah wah. You bastard! Let's be honest. Most of you out there, male and female, could not handle all that Viltrumite snoo. And also, it is hypocritical to say, oh, Mark would like it, or Mark enjoyed it, or you wish you were Mark. Whereas if Mark was a woman, and Anissa was a man, the internet would have been up in smoke about this. Sometimes I feel like beautiful people can get away with anything. I mean, just look at Hancock. Just for that, I hope Luffy marries Nami. Oh, come on, the was old. The was still breathing. And that's not the point. The point is, it doesn't matter how beautiful a person is, or if it's a woman, you can not just do whatever you want. Not every man's a freak like you. Every man doesn't want to be R-worded. So the fact is, Anissa was wrong, and Mark is a victim. How does that change the fact that it should have been me? It will never be you. Why not? Alright, for all those who didn't watch the show, you're probably wondering what a Viltrumite is. And to that, all I have to say is, you little broke. I know some of you watching may be young, but if you haven't broke that piggy bank yet and paid that $14.99 subscription on Amazon Prime, then I am convinced that your parents do not love you. And it's probably because they have a child that doesn't set their nappy head down, turn on the TV, and pay that subscription with the leftover lunch money. You don't need that stale pizza. You need to watch peak entertainment. Don't you want to see a grown man with a mustache beat the living dog shit out of his kid for personal reasons? No? Too violent for you? That's why your ass is adopted. Anyway, a male Viltrumite is more or less like evil Superman with a mustache, but a little bit weaker. And the female ones are basically the same, except no mustache. They got those tickle biggies, giggity, and they'll beat you down faster than a crackhead Ronda Rousey. And that last part is not an exaggeration. Viltrumites are not about weakness, they're all about strength. If you're weak, you're nothing. Viltrumites are known to be a brutal, vicious race that have superhuman abilities. All of them. And from what I read from the history of the Viltrumites, they apparently achieved a utopia by culling the weaker from their numbers. And the term culling here means basically purging or more or less slaughtering. Basically, from what I read, the strong didn't like the fact that there were weaker Viltrumites. So they're just like, it's time to thin the herd. So they killed all the weaker ones, leaving a race of conquerors. And conquer they did. They had a whole world conquering committee. And this conquering committee was basically responsible for the expansion of the empire. And the way this committee went around conquering was very simple. A planet that was targeted for assimilation would be offered a chance to willingly join the empire in patronage. But this wasn't really a choice, however, because either you joined or fight back, nigga! But more specifically, they would send an army of flying Superman to destroy the planet. And I read army, but really it should be like 3 or 4 Viltrumites to like run the planet through. Now, to make a long story short, eventually the coalition of planets, which is more or less the rebellion against the Viltrumite Empire, created a virus that was capable of killing the Viltrumite population. And this virus killed 99.999% of the population of Viltrumites, at least until there was a vaccine made. But by the time a vaccine was made, there was only at least 50 Viltrumites left. So now you're probably getting the picture of why they need to populate so badly, because if they don't, they're in danger of dying out, which is honestly kind of what they deserve. But regardless, this is where you come in, male or female. A Viltrumite man or woman has picked you to settle down and get freaky with, but will this benefit you or not? Well, viewer, like always, let's look at the facts. And the facts are, in normal Viltrumite culture, romantic love and strong emotional attachments are often viewed as weakness that can hinder their strength and potential. Viltrumites tend to view their partners primarily for reproduction. They often choose partners based on strength and accomplishments rather than emotional connection. Now this could be a con. However, I know the truth. I read the comments and seen the show, and I know for sure, these white outfits, mustache wearing supermen have a weakness for human booty. Now how do I know this? There was basically one point in the Invincible comments where Drag, the current leader of the Viltrumites, or more or less the one with the fresh cut, he gave the other Viltrumites a mission to reproduce on Earth. Now this mission was more or less to get the numbers back up. He didn't care how many partners they took. He didn't care if they took them by force. He wanted new Viltrumite blood, plain and simple. But it did not go the way he thought, because something happened that no one really expected. These Viltrumites caught feelings. What? Not Anissa though, she hated this idea, but the other two definitely caught feelings. The black one's name is Lucan, and he said, and I quote, "My mate, she has been hurt in the past by a companion who was disloyal. She doesn't approve of my procreating with other women. Were I to do so, she would become upset. I do not wish to do that to her." In other words, Lucan looked Drag straight in the face and said, "Black men don't cheat." Let me say it again for you. Viltrumite black men do not cheat. Can I get an oh yeah? Oh yeah! Yeah! God bless a little black ball head. I'm just saying what we all should already know. Anyway, moving on. One fact and con with dealing with a Viltrumite, at least as far as being their partner goes, would be their very long lives. Viltrumites can live for thousands of years with their aging slowing as they reach maturity. A Viltrumite will likely outlive you and the planet. Now for the most part, parents do usually die before their children because they're already older, but in this case, you'll be missing out a huge portion of your child's life, and there's a very big likelihood that you won't even see all your grandchildren. However, one pro about this is, as long as they remember you, you are practically immortalized. But there is also one more bad thing about this I just thought about. Your Viltrumite waifu or husbando is likely to get another partner after you die. Now this could vary depending on the Viltrumite in question, but we cannot forget, even Nolan, aka Omni-Man, slept with another woman after he left Debbie and after he beat up Mark. And I say woman, but really was just a bug. And I mean, I know I'm repeating myself, but he literally left her and went and slept with a bug woman. Would shut up. This honestly kind of put things in perspective for us, because even though black Viltrumites don't cheat, obviously, that ain't all of them. He's very likely to cheat on you, or you're going to be in a harem. And sadly, men, this goes for the female Viltrumites too. And you already know there's going to be men lined up for that. You and your Viltrumite waifu's love may be strong, but the mission is absolute. And for men, honestly, this may be worse. Women, culture-wise, are usually more accepting, or at least in some cultures, if a man wants to bring another wife or woman to sleep with. But I'm going to tell you right now, there's no man alive unless he's a born cuck that wants to watch his girl get the Oni back shots from another man. But in this very unlikely scenario, you can't stop her, and she is very likely to have more than one baby daddy. However, if I could just use Anissa for an example here, even though she did all word Mark, and originally she didn't like the idea of mating with human men, that all changed when she tasted chocolate.
Chocolate? Did you say chocolate?
Yes, sir. With or without nuts.
Apparently, she likes them with nuts. Alright. She married a black man named Scott Murphy, and she had a daughter with him named Molly Murphy. Woman got tested that chocolate and changed up quick. My main point is though, she only had one partner after Mark. Moving on, another benefit and pro I found was protection. You technically have a Superman or Superwoman at your disposal, which means, viewer, you can be posted up McDonald's like this. Oh yeah, all the McNuggets and McChickens are yours. And my meal, adults or not, better come with a Hot Wheels toy like they used to do in the old days, or my super baby mama will destroy this planet. And your tip shall be that we spared you and Ron McDonald's life. Then she can pick you up in her arms and fly off with you. And you can flip the McDonald's burgers off as you eat your McChicken. Ba 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 ba. Hell yeah, I would love it. Talk about sitting in a seat better than first class. Anyway, another benefit is you won't have to worry about your kids' safety all that much. You know, if you were to have kids, a Viltrumite can fight off almost any known disease. Almost. You know, because there's the Scourge virus I told you about, but that one was made, so it's not really a natural virus. Also, Viltrumites can heal wounds almost instantly. Now, I think the text that I read exaggerates this just a bit. They can heal fast, but for what I've seen and read in the comments, not Deadpool fast. Some online have compared their healing to Spider-Man's healing. So more or less, any major injuries would take a lot more time to heal. And I do not think they can regenerate whole limbs. I think that's basically proven with Conquest and his Thanos gauntlet. But more or less with the kids, you got nothing to worry about. Now their past actions and culture aside, I think the pros outweigh the con when it comes to the benefits of being a Viltrumite's partner. But my opinion is my own. Tell me yours! Ladies, could you handle the Omni back shots? Men, will you want to be in Mark's position in this scene? Yes! Let us know in the comments, and let us know which waifu y'all want us to do next. And you guys have a great day. Bye!
All